When we think of nations plagued by mass violence, the serene landscapes of Southeast Asia rarely come to mind. Thailand, known to millions as a tropical paradise of vibrant culture and peaceful Buddhist traditions, hides a complex relationship with firearm culture and deep-rooted institutional power underneath its welcoming exterior. While gun ownership is legal and higher than many neighboring countries, the concept of a lone gunman executing a systematic, large-scale massacre was entirely foreign to the public consciousness. The military, an omnipresent force that has shaped the country's political landscape through numerous historical coups, was always viewed as a shield of national security, an elite institution above the chaos of everyday crime. But in February of 2020, the very mechanism designed to protect the citizens would turn inward, unleashing an unprecedented wave of terror that changed the nation forever. The man at the center of this impending nightmare was Jakrapanth, a quiet, seemingly unremarkable soldier born in the central northeastern province of Chayapam. Growing up, those who knew him saw a young man who preferred the discipline of the gym and the camaraderie of local soccer matches over any conspicuous display of aggression. He eventually entered the Royal Thai Army non-commissioned officer school, where his instructors quickly noticed a terrifyingly precise skill set emerging from his quiet demeanor. Jakrapanth was not just an ordinary soldier, he excelled exceptionally well in long-range marksmanship and underwent specialized training focused specifically on tactical ambush operations. Rising to the rank of sergeant major within the 22nd Ammunition Battalion, he became a fixture at the Suratham 5th military camp, trusted with the very machinery of war. To the outside world, Sergeant Major Jakrapanth was just another dedicated serviceman who spent his free time running a small YouTube channel called Arm or Piercing, where he casually uploaded vlog, gaming footage, and clips of himself practicing at the firing range. His online presence was mundane, fading into relative inactivity by 2019, while his peers on the military base described him as a highly competent but exceptionally reserved individual. Yet, beneath this mask of professional obedience and quiet isolation, a toxic reservoir of pure rage was slowly filling to the brim. He was harboring a dark animosity toward his superior officers, driven by an institutional culture where high-ranking commanders frequently abused their immense power to exploit subordinates for personal financial gain. Jakrapanth believed he had been deeply wronged by the people who commanded his loyalty, and the countdown to his breaking point had already begun. The catalyst for Jakrapanth's descent into madness was a real estate transaction that went horribly wrong, involving his direct commanding officer, Colonel Anant Kakarase, and the colonel's mother. In the Thai military hierarchy, senior officers often leveraged their positions to run lucrative side businesses, some of which operated in highly unethical legal gray areas. Jakrapanth had entered into an agreement with the colonel to purchase a plot of land, handing over a substantial amount of his hard-earned money as deposits and payments. However, the colonel and his relative allegedly manipulated the system, keeping the money while refusing to legally transfer ownership of the property back to the sergeant major. Left completely broke, humiliated, and with absolutely no institutional recourse to reclaim his stolen life savings, Jakrapanth's ultimate faith in the military system dissolved entirely. That as winter turned to early spring in 2020, the sergeant major began venting his boiling frustrations to old classmates and friends, explicitly naming the colonel as the source of his ruin. By early February, his private anger spilled over into ominous public warning signs on his personal Facebook page. On February 7th, he posted a cryptic message asking if someone wanted to test their luck, followed by a late-night update expressing a desperate hope that divine powers would help him survive the coming day. He even uploaded an image of a revolver loaded with ammunition, captioned with the chilling phrase, "It is time to get excited." Because social media is frequently filled with empty bravado and vague posts, his friends dismissed the updates as mere venting, completely unaware that these were the final, calculated diary entries of an active mass murderer. The morning of February 8th arrived with a deceptive sense of normalcy, but Jakrapanth had already decided that this day would serve as his ultimate day of reckoning. Shortly after midday, he returned to Facebook to deliver his final manifesto to the world, writing a scathing condemnation of those who became wealthy through deception and taking advantage of others, bitterly asking if they truly believed they could spend their stolen wealth in hell. Armed and hyper-focused, he drove through the Nakhon Ratchasima province, known locally as Korat, navigating toward the residential home of Colonel Anant Akarase, located near the military installation. He arrived at approximately 3 p.m., ready to force a violent confrontation over the stolen land funds. Inside the residence, a massive argument erupted between the disgruntled sergeant major, his commander, and the colonel's mother. The verbal dispute reached a point of no return when Chakrapanth seized a firearm, pointed it directly at his commanding officer, and shot him square in the face. Without a single moment of hesitation, he swung the weapon toward the colonel's mother-in-law and fired another round directly into her head, killing them both instantly. For most vengeful individuals, executing the primary targets of their hatred would mark the end of the violence. But for Chakrapanth, the double homicide was merely an opening act. He spent a cold, quiet half-hour processing his actions inside the blood-splattered house before walking back out to his vehicle, sets firmly focused on an even grander target. At roughly 4 p.m., the sergeant major rolled through the gates of the Surathampathic military base, where his identity and uniform granted him seamless access to the compound. He moved deliberately toward the base armories, having already stopped at a preliminary guard outpost to steal a tactical shotgun. Inside the primary armory building, a lone soldier was stationed on guard duty, completely distracted by his mobile phone. On an otherwise quiet afternoon, Chakrapanth walked casually up the stairs and engaged the guard in a brief, remarkably ordinary conversation. The guard showed no alarm at the presence of a fellow soldier carrying a weapon, and even when Chakrapanth raised the shotgun and aimed it directly at his chest, the guard simply turned around to walk toward an adjacent office. That was when Chakrapanth pulled the trigger, firing a blast that caused the unsuspecting soldier to stumble violently forward. To ensure there was no resistance, the sergeant major fired a second definitive shot, sending the guard to the floor, before using the weapon to blow the lock off the primary armory door. Inside lay a devastating military arsenal, and Chakrapanth raided it with expert efficiency, taking 2 Type 11 assault rifles, a heavy M60 machine gun, a specialized bolt-action rifle, and nearly 800 rounds of live ammunition. He rushed outside, ambushed a military officer to hijack a tactical Humvee, and drove toward the base exits. Just outside the perimeter, he unleashed a barrage of bullets upon 2 responding police officers and 2 helpless civilians, inflicting severe wounds to their backs and legs, before speeding off into the city. By 4:30 p.m., the hijacked military vehicle was tearing through the streets of approaching the sacred grounds of the Wat Pasutha Ruam Buddhist temple, with law enforcement cruisers beginning to tail him. Chakrapanth brought the heavy Humvee to a sudden halt, stepped out into the open air, and began spraying automatic gunfire indiscriminately into the civilian traffic. The sudden wall of lead ripped through the peaceful afternoon, killing a police officer and 8 ordinary citizens in a matter of seconds. After discarding the bulky M60 machine gun and one of his rifles into the roadside grass, he climbed back into the driver's seat. He pulled out his phone and posted a chilling status update to Facebook. 3 deaths were in revenge. The rest were self-defense. The rogue soldier drove aimlessly through the city for nearly an hour, allowing the psychological weight of his rampage to build as nightfall began to descend. His final destination was Terminal 21, a massive, multi-story shopping complex designed around a whimsical international airport theme, complete with replicas of global landmarks and family attractions. Because it was a major public holiday, the bustling commercial hub was packed with thousands of unsuspecting families, teenagers, and weekend shoppers. As the military Humvee screeched to a halt outside the main entrance, the joyful atmosphere of the crowded mall vanished, replaced instantly by an unfolding nightmare. Stepping out of the vehicle in full combat gear, Chakrapanth lifted his Type 11 assault rifle and began shooting anyone who crossed his line of sight. He aimed with terrifying precision, targeting the heads and chests of fleeing shoppers as they scrambled for cover. In a surreal display of modern vanity mixed with mass murder, he opened his Facebook application and began live streaming his actions directly to the internet. Dashcam and cell phone footage captured horrific scenes of the gunman firing directly into passing cars, killing drivers and passengers when brave bystanders tried to assist those bleeding out on the asphalt. Chakrapanth coldly utilized them as target practice, stepping out from behind his vehicle to gun down a motorcyclist who had stopped to help a fallen victim. Outside the complex alone, 12 innocent civilians lost their lives to his pinpoint marksmanship. Between volleys of gunfire, Chakrapanth recorded a short video of himself, making a mock handgun gesture with his fingers, While joking to his digital audience that he was getting tired and could barely pull his finger anymore, he then shot a large gas cylinder, triggering a massive explosion that sent a towering wall of fire into the evening sky. Pausing amidst the chaos, he snapped a casual selfie with the raging inferno illuminating his military helmet and posted it online. At approximately 6 p.m., exactly 3 hours after his first victims were executed, the lone wolf walked calmly through the shattered glass doors of Terminal 21 to take the interior by storm. CCTV footage from inside the mall captured the surreal sight of the sergeant major walking through the corridors, his rifle resting casually over his shoulder as if he were on a routine patrol. Inside, panic spread like wildfire as thousands of civilians heard the echo of gunshots bouncing off the concrete walls. Witnesses described a scene of absolute pandemonium, with frantic mothers abandoning strollers and motorists fleeing their vehicles in the packing structures. Jack Ropinth immediately engaged the mall security staff, killing one officer and leaving 2 others critically wounded, forcing law enforcement to establish a massive 2-kilometer exclusion zone around the entire building, while hundreds managed to escape through side exits. An unknown number remained trapped in closets, storerooms, and under restaurant tables. The gunman worked his way up to the 4th floor, where he effectively corralled a large group of terrified shoppers, taking them hostage, hidden away in dark bathroom stalls and underneath dining booths. Civilians desperately texted their loved ones, praying the killer wouldn't hear their breathing. Meanwhile, Jack Ropinth continued his digital assault, posting regular updates and dark memes to his profile. During another brief livestream inside the building, he screamed out a variation of his earlier manifesto, demanding to know if the corrupt elite truly believed they could take their stolen wealth with them into the afterlife. At 6:30 p.m., he posted a final philosophical declaration: "Death is inevitable for everyone." As tactical police units began infiltrating the lower levels to rescue stranded civilians, Jack Ropinth's online activity took a bizarre, erratic turn. At 6:57 p.m., he posted a simple question to his page: "Can I surrender?" A mere 12 minutes later, he claimed he was stopping his assault, followed by a cold inquiry asking if the 3 security guards he had shot earlier were officially dead. Recognizing the critical role social media was playing in providing the shooter with real-time feedback and attention, Facebook executives officially terminated his account at 9:30 p.m. While this cut off his platform, it also plunged the tactical command center into absolute darkness, stripping them of any real-time insight into the killer's psychological state or his current movements. In a desperate bid to end the standoff peacefully, authorities located Jack Ropinth's devastated mother and brought her directly to the scene, handing her a microphone to plead for her son's surrender. Her tearful, agonizing cries echoed through the communications channels, begging him to lay down his arms, but her words fell upon deaf ears as the sergeant major refused to respond. Late into the night, specialized assault teams cleared the ground floor, managing to evacuate hundreds of hidden civilians. But when they pushed further and ordered the gunman to yield, Jack Ropinth ambushed them with a sudden volley of gunfire, killing 2 police officers and a soldier while wounding 3 others. Then, in the pitch blackness of midnight, the shooter completely vanished from the 4th floor, leaving commanders to realize with horror that they had completely lost track of the military-trained assassin. The search intensified into the early morning hours of February 9th, with specialized commandos methodically sweeping every single corridor of the massive commercial labyrinth. Unbeknownst to the search teams, Jack Ropinth had used his tactical ambush training to slip down into the absolute bowels of the building, taking up a heavily fortified position in the basement level near a grocery store and a crowded food court. At around 2 a.m., the silence of the dark mall was shattered once again by a ferocious firefight. Minutes later, medical personnel wheeled out 2 more casualties on stretchers, including another fallen officer, while a small group of children crawled out of a side exit, their hands raised in terror as police searched them to ensure the killer wasn't hiding in their midst. The agonizing siege stretched through the remainder of the night, leaving the entire nation of Thailand holding its collective breath as dawn began to break over. Korat, by 8 a.m., elite security forces had successfully pinned the sergeant major down inside a basement storage area, initiating a tense, hour-long standoff. Commando units lay prone across the concrete floors, weapons trained on his position, waiting for the inevitable conclusion. The final climax occurred at 9:05 a.m., when Jack Ropinth made a desperate, aggressive movement, prompting a definitive wall of gunfire from the elite commandos that finally ended the life of the rogue sergeant major. When the smoke finally cleared from the basement of Terminal 21, the true devastating cost of the 21-hour rampage was laid bare to the world. Initial government briefings confirmed that 27 individuals, including the gunman himself, lay dead, though that horrific number quickly climbed to 30 as critically injured victims succumbed to their wounds in local hospitals. An additional 57 citizens remained hospitalized with severe injuries, while rescue volunteers wept openly at the unprecedented sight of a modern shopping mall transformed into a literal war zone. Forensic teams spent hours cataloging the bodies of innocent men, women, and children who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. In the immediate wake of the massacre, a wave of profound public fury swept across the nation, targeting the institutions that had allowed the tragedy to occur. Local television networks faced intense criticism for broadcasting the live movements of tactical police units during the siege, a fatal mistake that allowed Jakrapanth to stay one step ahead of authorities simply by watching the news on his phone. Simultaneously, the military faced severe backlash for housing its lethal arsenal behind a simple, easily broken padlock and for cultivating a corrupt system of financial exploitation that drove a trained marksman to mass murder. The Prime Minister clumsily addressed the public, labeling the tragedy unprecedented and expressing a desperate hope that such a crisis would never occur again. On Taisoy Lunaware, that a systemic crack had been exposed, and the dark precedent had already been set. The vibrant lights of Terminal 21 were eventually turned back on, and the physical scars of the structural damage were carefully erased, but the psychological fabric of a peaceful nation was permanently altered on that bloody weekend. A tragedy born from a hidden military grudge proved that no paradise is entirely safe from the horrors of human rage, leaving a legacy of grief that continues to echo through the quiet streets of Korat. The families of the 30 victims are left to navigate a world forever fractured by 21 hours of unmitigated terror, carrying a sorrow that no official apology or institutional reform can ever hope to mend. Because when the institutions built to protect the society become the very breeding grounds for monsters, the monsters will always know exactly where to find the weapons.